This is lesson 7 and domain 8 on animals and habitats. Now, last lesson we learned all about the tropical rainforest, and all of the habitats we've talked about so far have been all land habitats with the exception of the Arctic Ocean, which was in our first habitat that we learned about. But all of the other habitats that we've been talking about have been land-based habitats. And we're going to get into something a lot different with this lesson, where we are going to be talking about the freshwater habitat. Now, after this lesson, you're going to be able to explain key parts of the freshwater habitat, and you're going to be able to explain how animals have adapted to live there. Like always, before we get started, we do have some vocabulary words. The first one is amphibious. And amphibious has a new digraph in there that we haven't talked about. PH can sound like an F. So PH can sound like F, so amphibious, which is able to live both on land and in water. There are many different animals that can go in the water and live on land, so they are amphibious. The next one is float, to stay or move slowly on top of the water without sinking underneath the water. Freshwater, water that is not salty. And gills, the part of the body that fish and other underwater animals use to breathe. Now, there are many different types of freshwater habitats, as we can see by this picture here. They can be rivers, streams, lakes, and ponds, and these are found all over the world. And a freshwater habitat, the only thing that they need to be considered a freshwater habitat is the water can't be salty at all. So these are going to be freshwater habitats. So our character Rattenborough is going to take us on this adventure and explain to us what a freshwater habitat is. We're going to see some of the different animals and some of the different plants that are living in this freshwater habitat. Hello again. Glad you could join me. I thought that we needed a real change, so I've come off dry land to a place where it's wet all the time, a lake. A lake is an area of water that is surrounded by land. There is a lot of water in the world. In fact, water covers most of the Earth's surface. But only a tiny part of the world's water is fresh water, the kind of water that you and I can drink because it has very little salt in it. Fresh water is found in streams, rivers, lakes, and ponds. The water in these streams, rivers, lakes, and ponds come from the rain and from melting ice and snow. Isn't it amazing to think that the water from the drinking fountain at school or from the faucets in your house all come from rain? I'm here at the water's edge to explore this lake and the plants and animals that call this freshwater habitat home. Freshwater habitats have many kinds of fish, birds, insects, and other animals. Standing here, I can see an enormous leaf in the water. Let me climb onto it so we can get a closer look. This is a water lily leaf. A water lily is a plant that lives in water near the edges of the ponds and lakes. Plants are important in freshwater habitats because they make oxygen for the animals to breathe. Plants are also food for the animals to eat, and they can provide shelter to protect animals from their predators. The leaves of the water lily are very large, round, and green, and they float on the surface of the water. Water lilies. The water lily is well adapted for living in this habitat. Like the kapok tree in the rainforest, the lily's large leaves let it get as much sunlight as it needs for food and energy. Lilies are also food for many animals, believe it or not. Animals like deer, porcupines, beavers, and turtles all eat the leaves, whereas ducks and geese like to eat the roots. Some animals, like fish and frogs, use the lily leaves as hiding places, and the flowers bring bees and other insects. I am going to float around the edge of the lake on this water lily leaf, but I'm going to have to leave soon because this pesky turtle will not leave my leaf alone. I've pushed out from the edge of the lake a little, and I can already see another kind of plant that lives here. It's called a cattail, and it gets its name from the unusual way it looks. Thankfully for me, it doesn't have much to do with real cats. Cattails have long, thin stems with foot-long, furry flower spikes at the top that turn from green in the early summer to brown in the fall. The flower spike feels soft and furry and looks a little like a cat's tail, but I think it looks more like a hot dog. The plants can reach up to 9 feet high, which lets them get as much sunlight as they need. As with water lilies, some animals use cattails for food and shelter. Muskrats and geese like to eat the roots of the cattail, and the juicy green shoots are a favorite of moose and elk. Many kinds of birds make their homes among the cattails. It's very hard to see anything in there because cattails grow so thickly, so it's a good place for birds to build their nests and to lay and hatch their eggs. Predators like snakes and frogs also live among the cattails and search for animals like birds and insects for food. I think I'm going to move on now. As you know, I'm not very good with snakes. Come with me beneath the water and let's take a look at what's under there. Here are some nice looking rainbow trout. Fish can only live in water, and they breathe underwater using gills on the sides of their bodies. Gills take in oxygen from the water around them. Fish have strong tails that they use for swimming and fins that they use for steering and balance. The rainbow trout is a carnivore. It eats other water animals like insects, other fish, and sometimes shellfish. It even eats some small land animals like mice if it gets the chance, so I'm sure it wouldn't mind a nibble of a rat. Rainbow trout like to live in rivers, but some prefer the deeper water of big lakes. I enjoyed exploring beneath the surface of the water, and now I'm going to rest on this lily pad again. While I'm drying off a bit, let me show you a kind of frog called a bullfrog that I can see sitting at the water's edge. Frogs are amphibious, which means they live both in the water and on the land. Bullfrogs are the largest kind of frog found in North America, and they can grow more than half a foot long and weigh more than a pound. That's a really big frog. The bullfrog gets its name from the loud, cow-like noise it makes. I bet birds and turtles would be pretty surprised to know that a frog can make such a loud sound. Pretty neat, huh? This bullfrog is resting now, but it will come out to hunt when it gets dark. Bullfrogs like to eat a lot of different kinds of food. They are carnivores, so they eat small fish, snakes, birds, and insects like this dragonfly that's buzzing about my head. Adult dragonflies are flying insects with long bodies and wings. Dragonflies live around lakes, streams, and other freshwater habitats because they lay their eggs in water. Adult dragonflies eat other insects like mosquitoes, flies, and bees. The dragonfly uses its long wings to hover around in the air where it catches its food. It has to be careful because the bullfrog isn't the only one that likes to eat dragonflies. Birds and turtles like to eat them too. The water is getting a little rough out here. Oh, that's why. Here come some birds that like to eat insects. These are a kind of duck called mallards. Ducks are birds and can live both in and out of water, but it's the water where they spend most of their time. Like all birds, ducks, like these mallards, are covered in feathers. Did you know that ducks' feathers are waterproof? Ducks rub special oil from their tails all over their feathers. Because oil and water don't mix together, water drips right off the ducks without getting their feathers wet. Ducks float on the surface of the water and have large webbed feet to help them paddle. They dip their heads under the water and use their beaks, which are called bills, to search for food at the bottom of the lake. Mallards eat grasses and seeds from plants, and small animals like insects, worms, snails, frogs, and small fish. So because they eat both plants and other animals, they're omnivores. Well, we've had a good look around this freshwater habitat, but I have got to get off this lily leaf before these ducks knock me off. There's another kind of water habitat, and we're going to have a look at it next time. I hope you'll join me. And now, if you'll excuse me, I have to start my long trip back to shore. So that was all about freshwater habitats. If you need a refresher, go back and rewatch this video or go to certain parts of the video to listen to more parts of it again. Once you're finished and you have all the information, head back to Seesaw and complete the activity on freshwater habitats.